Welcome to the Three Cast. This is episode 191. Um, you can catch us. Our contact info is contact at the3cast.com, facebook.com, on Twitter, the Three Cast. As you can tell, I'm not the normal host. Matt is away today, holed up under some desk at work. Popping some codeine and maybe a little what's that other one? Um,
Zoloft to prevent you from killing people.
that's what it is. Anyways, this
Oxycontin or something.
anyways this week we're going to be covering esports slash video game streaming is taking over the world. So yeah, Vince, let's get your take.
All right, so I think that was an inevitability. I mean, like this esports movement has been taking like a huge bunch of leaps forward in the last decade or so. I mean, it's not just simply something that's isolated to nerds and geeks. I mean, there's a program that is being offered in this, like you know how in some state, well, I guess a lot of state schools, you guys pull in kids from high school to play university football. Well, they're doing that
Yeah,
now
yeah, yeah.
sports in the states. A couple of universities are doing that for esports, which is kind of a clear sign. In the past, we've also had courses based in university level about esports and competitive gaming. And I mean, we're not even touching the whole competitive gaming that emerged way back, like in the '90s, with like the Street Fighter tournaments, and then of course the Counter Strike tournaments that came out. Not to mention like the whole country of Korea. Like man, like Warcraft just does
Oh,
something and they blow up Starcraft and everything. I mean, and just what was it? This past week they announced that they're looking at the competitive esports portfolio. So it used to be like what one of the shooting games, probably like, and then one of the driving games, and probably one of the like Starcraft slash real time simulation games. And now they're actually opening it up to include like motion games like Dance Dance Revolution, not sorry, Dance, what is it, the dancing games and stuff. That's getting kind of cool because that's actually really competitive and really physical. So it's like you can't make the argument that's like bowling where it's like a fat dude that just rolls a ball and like does nothing for the rest of his life, right? Or like the designated hitter in baseball. Now we're talking about people that really need to be physically fit. And quite frankly, games in general, like the biggest argument against video games as esports or real sports is that it's not really actively physically engaging. But if you look at all the competitive sports that are really out there, like golf, come on, bowling, darts, like you turn on ESPN or TSN or whatever Sportsnet at 3 in the morning, it's going to be like either strongest man or it's going to be like darts or like interspersed with like competitive dog walking or something like that, right? But
weird.
yeah, but I mean, like if you look at what skill sets are required for video games, it's basically hand-eye coordination, which is effectively anything instead of swinging a bat or instead of catching a ball, you're actually pressing buttons, which I think is quite complex in itself sometimes. So I think it's rightful that it's actually becoming something of a real sport. I think it's going to take a while before it loses the stigma of being something that like guys play. You remember the whole what was it the girls, the frag dolls or whatever?
Oh yeah,
Like they're still trying to make headway, but unfortunately they're not doing any service to female gamers in general because they're like trying to play up their skankiness. But like they still got a ways to go to make competitive esports something accessible to the mainstream, other than the stigma, but also like the players themselves. Like I mean, when you go and play Call of Duty online, I mean you get all the homophobia and racism. Like that's not doing the sport any justice. It's like if they want to do anything, they should take a cue from like UFC, where they kind of like know that it's barbaric fighting, but they kind of class it up. They set really good rules. They set certain standards, and they don't they don't tolerate garbage and like how that can go down a slippery slope of just crappy media.
yeah. Well, I mean, for me as a gamer, we talked about it before, and I already said like, I don't understand why, like a game vendor or one of the console manufacturers or something. I mean, as a gamer, for me, it'd be awesome to have a channel where I could watch, like Call of Duty games being played, stuff like that. I mean, I know that there are a lot of gamers out there, but it maybe right now doesn't have the enough viewers behind it, or whatever. But I watched the whole thing. There was a whole segment on the World of Warcraft and how that's some serious shit. They got like these guys that were they have what is it, a company where anyways they pull in like kids and all they do every day is just work on World of Warcraft strategies, whatever. Then they hit the competition, stuff like that. And the guy who runs the
In
thing,
Korea?
no, no, no. It was in the States, right? And the guy who runs it, he used to be, or actually, I think he was still competitive, but not as much. But he runs it, and they had major sponsors like Monster and all these other. And the dude's
Balls.
driving, yeah, like, and the dude's driving a Bentley. So I was like, like that's just insane. And even seeing that, like there were some players, like one guy was, used to be a football player, through high school and college, and he's doing that. So it's not like, back in the day where it's like, oh, video games are for, nerds and geeks or whatever, or, all the guys who play basketball, football don't play that. You know what I mean? Like it's not like that anymore. With Call of Duty and different games, Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that. I think it's breaking down the barriers and the demographic of who plays it, and I think it's great that the more popular it gets and the more out there it gets. I think it's also playing on sort of like you see Big Bang Theory and shows like Silicon Valley on HBO. It's this
Mhm.
whole nerd thing, like nerd culture is like this cool thing that I see it all the time. You look on Instagram, you see all these I don't want to say like popular, but you know what I mean, like these like
Poser nerds?
no, 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 like not nerds, like the opposite of nerds, right? But they put on like thick rimmed glasses and they're like, "Oh, look at my nerdy style," or you know what I mean? And that is just
This
simply
lame hipsters,
playing
yeah.
off the mainstream popularity of it now. But I think this is also playing off the popularity of it, where it's like, okay, everything that's in that culture is becoming cool. Comics, look, lots of movies now are being based on comics. You got Big Bang Theory, Silicon Valley. People are, trying to do. They had the movie with what's his name, Vince Vaughn and what's his name at
Internship.
Google. Yeah, that's it. So the whole thing, and I think they're playing off that because video games, is supposed to be a part of that culture too, right? So,
But
good for them. I hope it gains more popularity, and I hope my dream of one day having a channel.
well, actually, I was going to say something about that because it's become very obvious that the companies, not just simply the game developers, but the actual like hardware manufacturers, like the Sonys, the Xbox, so the Microsofts, they're actually taking note of this. And I actually want to know what your thoughts were on, and maybe you can enlighten me a little bit on, online watching of gaming. Like what, like Sony has that service where you can just like upload automatically your gameplay. You obviously have like things like Twitch and all that stuff. Is that really something that you see as a reaction by the companies, by like Microsoft and Sony, to support the competitive gaming, or is it just simply like another feature that you think that like kind of like motion sensing controls that's like a gimmick right now, and then like later on it's gonna be like, yeah, whatever, we don't need it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think I don't think it's that they're supporting. What I think they're trying to do with that is, the greatest part about like console gaming right now and why online is so popular is competition. Like as humans, we love to be competitive. We love to be at the top of the charts. And so, by being able to record your gameplay, when you frag someone or you teabag someone or something like that. You know what I mean? But what's the point of recording it if you're the one watching it? You already saw it happen. You already did it.
Hmm. Right?
for doing that, and show people how badass you are. And I think from that, by them allowing people to show that, they're hoping other people will see it and then become interested. And the the houses that produce the games, it's the same thing, because if someone doesn't have, Call of Duty or Halo, and they see some really great gameplay, that will push them to go and get the game. Um, but I think it's great, and I hope, what I hope is that people, I think the majority of the gamers, unless you're hardcore gamers, but the people who, kind of just play or whatever, not really like what you would consider a gamer. They may not know about the feature, they may not know that they can watch other people's gameplay and stuff. So I just hope it gets like more people knowing about it, because I think it will feed back into the gaming community, and it will push people to buy the consoles, buy the games, and that will sort of just make the whole thing like really good, right? The
Well,
more people play, the better the competition.
well,
Yeah,
Rick,
you were gonna.
I was going to comment on one issue that emerges because I just always like looking back at repeating of history, and I'm thinking about like just basketball, for example, right? It started off as a recreational thing that people were just playing, right? They weren't like when it was first developed by a Canadian, it was just like an exercise to make, keep people athletic, right? And then eventually became a recreational sport, right? People would just play it for fun, and then it became a thing where people now pay millions of dollars to watch, like get season tickets and whatever, and it becomes like there are people that watch basketball and have never picked up a basketball, for example, right? And the question I have then is, do you see this moving into the future that we're going to be so inundated with competitive gaming and just watching gaming being played by other people that we might just become like armchair video game athletes, not even playing, but just going, oh, did you see that? Like, oh, sniper, oh, look at that drop shot, like, like that kind of thing. Because quite frankly, right now, the only time I ever, and I'll be first to admit that, yeah, I go online to check out some video game footage, but that's because like say I'm playing Dark Souls or something, and I'm just like, where the hell do I go? Or I am lost. How do you beat this boss? And I'll just go and watch how to do that, but I want to play that. Whereas from what I gather, like watching my little brother, he's a big shoot 'em up fan. He's like watching Call of Duty, and he's looking at just, oh man, see that's the best place to take your sniper shots, or oh look, he threw the grenades, and then he switched to the weapon, and then cycled through, and then and I was like, this matters to you, right? He didn't care less about like the game itself. He was just like, oh man, look at the technicals. And I was like, did you ever play? The kid doesn't even own an Xbox or a PlayStation. He just like watches the games like because he's dirt poor, right? So it's just really weird to see me play, like struggling to play and trying to get some enjoyment by watching these videos, but then my little brother who just straight up watches the videos because that's his entertainment. Like that's like the evolution. Like that's where basketball from a game to basketball as like the NBA where people don't even play anymore. That's the
Yeah.
thing I'm asking about. Do you see that happening?
Well, I can see that happening, because when you look at like where we're headed, right? Like technology travels like at crazy speeds. When you look at dial-up modems compared to high-speed modems, compared to our smartphones now have LTE, which is faster than Wi-Fi. So I mean, like the technology is just traveling so fast. Like I said, people are intrigued with the whole, culture of comics, gaming, and stuff like that. And like I said, the dude who has the whole setup with all the games, he's driving a Bugatti. The more exposure it gets, is just the I think the more it will be out there. And you look at things like TV shows, movies. More and more people are watching it online. They're watching it on their tablets and stuff. So it's going away from traditional cable box channels, right? So there's a good chance that the esports and streaming video games and stuff will interest people. But yeah, exactly to your point, I think if it does hit big, it could become an entertainment thing where people who don't pick up the game, don't have a console, who aren't even interested in having the console, will watch it and will, watch it for entertainment. But at the same time, I think it's also good that with widespread kind of people watching and stuff like that, there's kids out there who will see it and who will have like crazy skills pulled in by it, and be pulled in by the chance that just like basketball, kids who otherwise wouldn't have been able to make it anywhere, whatever, they become a superstar athlete. You know what I mean? So there's kids out there who have mad skills. They'll be pulled into it because they want to get a contract with whatever team that's playing, top at World of Warcraft. They'll, have a draft and all kind of crazy things like that. I think it's possible. Um, it's just the way technology is going, it's a really good chance, but there's also a chance that it won't happen. But I think for me, I think there's more of a chance that, not in a year or two, but further in time, I think there's a good chance of it happening. You?
See, I was just gonna say that I think something that dawned on me, and this is maybe because you and I are like older. Remember arcades? Right, where you pop the quarters in, and it used to be like, the premium games were 50 cents, and the other ones were just a quarter.
Yep.
And I'm thinking back to the old days when you'd have, remember when Street Fighter 2 came out, and you'd have battles, like straight up battles. You'd put your quarters on the guy's in front of the guy's dash, and you'd be like, "Yo, man, I'm taking you down." Like it's like, "Hey, play, I'm taking you down," right?
Or you line up like 4, 5, or $2 or $3 in quarters, just like, yeah, that's right. No one's gonna take me off.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the thing. Like, I'm thinking back in those days, to be a really good competitive gamer, you had to be good because you were like this is us talking. Like, yeah, we're ghetto, man, because we had to play with quarters. We were good. We were damn good. 'Cause we paid our dues. Right? Like, I remember reading EGM, like Electronic Gaming Monthly magazines, and going, okay, the combo for this is this, and I'd be practicing it like on my desk or my piano or something, and then finally I get to joystick and I'm like, bam, do it, right? And I'm like, yeah, and that's how I got my skills. I didn't get to like just buy the game, take it home, and play it like 50 million times so that I'm better than you just because I played it for like 50 hours more than a million hours more than you have. See, that's the thing I have a problem with right now. The field isn't quite as level, right? And I liked it better when it's super competitive. I also like the fact that, like, another reason why esports might not be the best thing is because there's always going to be that issue of consistency, right? Like, back in the day, we would play, and you'd always have the Street Fighter joystick with the 6 buttons, kind of more or less the same configuration, but you would never complain that, oh, man, your system's better than my system, because you'd be playing the same console. Yeah. And ostensibly, you could like be switched up. It's not your console. You're not overclocking your computer. You don't have your own specific mouse, right? It's like level. Whereas, and same thing with normal sports. Like, basketball. It's an official basketball. You switch courts. It's not like the basketball court's angled to one side or another. But when you're playing esports, you could ostensibly have a whole ton of ways to cheat. Whether it's overclocking, better mice, better precision thing. Like, there's all these nuanced things that kind of make it difficult to really make it a level playing field, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I think, it all depends, right? Because the more popularity that it gains, the more, exposure and that sort of stuff, it'll be regulated, right? So, I mean, right now it's, I'm not gonna say it's not big, but it's not on the level of like what we're imagining, what we're talking about. And I think, when it gets to that level, let's say it's being broadcast nationwide or something, obviously they're gonna be, regulating it and checking. Okay, you know what I mean? Like there's measures that can be put in place, but I think until it reaches a certain level, they don't have time to put those measures in place because what they're trying to do is cultivate, more people playing to gain more people watching. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's about all I got to say about competitive gaming,
Yeah.
but it's still in its early years, but I suspect both of us agree that it's going to be something of note in the future. I just think that it does open up a big can of worms as to how consistent it's going to be and whether or not it's going to be on par with other sports and what a matter of how long it will be before that happens.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm same here. I'm with you. So, all right. Well, let's get to the question of the week. We're gonna skip the picks of the week since Matt's not here and I don't have one. So we'll do the question of the week instead. And it's funny because I pretty much know what your answer is going to be, and I'm pretty sure you know what my answer is going to be, but I'll ask it anyway. Batman or Superman?
Ricky. Batman, because as a character, you can empathize with him, and better yet, as a superhero, he actually goes beyond simply using the same old tropes to solve problems. So that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, I say Superman because he is more lovable, whereas Batman is
They're
just an
superheroes, not pound puppies. Jesus.
bag.
What?
You heard me, he's an egotistical douchebag.
I think you get the wrong impression, man. If I killed your parents when you were like a kid, I think you might have issues too.
Be a douchebag. Otherwise, no, like it's like simple. He's on the Justice League, but yet he doesn't like to be on a team. Like seriously, you don't like to be on a team? Then what the fuck you on the Justice League for?
Because he can oversee them and then he can make sure that they don't become corrupt. That's the whole. That's a story arc, you know that, right?
He's still an asshole.
Don't you
Okay,
find it ridiculous that he keeps on that Superman just keeps on solving like the bad guys with the same kind of real like physical force or like
uh,
human.
that guy didn't
Batman
say.
solves stuff differently all the time because he's thinking, man, and he comes up with solutions.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, the thing is, for me, when I look, like, I want my superheroes to be like someone I would aspire to be. And for me, Superman, with all his powers, he still is just like be friends with everyone. He wants to do what he thinks the right thing is. Whereas for me, Batman, he just rubs me the wrong way. I would never want to be like him. I would never want him to be a superhero. Like he's just an asshole. The way he talks, it's like, oh God.
He's not like, listen,
He
man.
is.
He was born. Like, okay, so yes, he was born with a silver spoon, but then he lost it all at a very young age, and then he's been suffering because of that. Like, and that's just like I think the real contrast is that one really had a great childhood, the other one lost his childhood, right? And think about that. That has huge impacts. Superman basically had it easy. So what? His planet blew up.
Superman
But he got
still.
raised in a warm, loving family. He got all the stuff he needed, right? And quite frankly, he couldn't die. Whereas Bruce Wayne, he loses his parents, falls off the horse a little bit, goes into seclusion, goes around the world to like learn about vengeance because that's the only feeling that you get when your parents get killed, right? And you can't hold it against the guy. The guy had no parents, and he just kind of has to do things on his own. That's the reason why he's a loner.
Yeah, but he's still an asshole.
How is he an asshole?
Cause the way he is, the way he talks, the way, oh, asshole. Okay, that is it for us this week. We will be back next week. Hopefully, Matt will be with us.
Yep.
So see you guys later.
Take care, guys.
Okay, now